Some say leaving a group can sometimes be like leaving a marriage. It certainly is. I don't know how many times in my 41 years in radio that I've talked to someone who has left a rock band, and you can relate to this, who is constantly asked, are you going to get back together? And they usually give an answer kind of like this. Do you want to go on a road trip with your ex-wife? Sometimes it's like that. It's an arduous thing to leave a group, especially if they're showing a lot of promise. Steve Hackett was with Genesis from 71 to 1977. He indirectly replaced their original guitarist, who was a main songwriter in the beginning of their career, Anthony Phillips. He weathered the storm from when Genesis in 1975 lost Peter Gabriel, who, as you know, went on to have a very fruitful solo career. But by 1977, he had enough. He had a lot of song ideas. And with, at that time, 4 people in the band: Phil Collins on drums, Mike Rutherford on bass and guitar, Tony Banks on keys, and Steve Hackett on guitar, there were a lot of ideas and a lot of songs, and an album only has a certain amount of tunes. And I should point out that Steve Hackett was the first Genesis member to release a solo album, and he did it while he was still in Genesis in 1975. It was called Voyage of the Acolyte, and still stands up today as one of the greatest prog albums of all time. And he, along with his indirect predecessor, Anthony Phillips, have released so many Genesis solo albums that it's hard to keep track. They've been very prolific, and they remain friends to this day. It's Steve Hackett talking about leaving the great band Genesis on Rock History Music.
But the album is autobiographical. It's my life from beginning of a certain time, and then a rite of passage as things changed, joining a band called Genesis that no one ever heard of, and then leaving that because it claimed to claustrophobic. There's certain tracks that relate to the claustrophobia of being in a highly successful situation, but you don't have autonomy. You can't really experiment. You need permission to write songs and record. And I thought, no, I've outgrown this. I've outgrown the need for permission. I don't need that anymore. I need autonomy. I need to be the captain of my own ship, and I'll go down with it if necessary. But that's some of what went on. There are other controlling times, other controlling influences that I had to pull away from as well. So there's quite a lot of angst in the album, and also establishing Joe and I as a couple, as distinct from everything else that was going on with me. And there was a lot of opposition. It was very difficult. You know, my previous wife was, you know, there was Kim. There was she ended up marrying my manager, the guy that she brought in really to manage me. And life was very, 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 very difficult. All of that was very, very tricky. And I sometimes found myself in a minority, but I knew that I had to pull away. There was no doubt about it. We went through a tricky divorce, and but Joe was with me throughout all this, and has been such an incredible support. So this is, you know, part of what drove the album. Lots of things that I can't talk about, that I'm not allowed to talk about because of court agreements and what have you.
What about in Genesis? What was the most challenging thing you did in that band?
Oh, it was always a challenge, believe me. I think the challenges were, you know, from the early days, we were doing a lot of this very quiet acoustic music, and we would play a lot of colleges where people would, you know, just wander off to the bar. We'd get drowned out by the sound of things from the bar. And I think also, when we did a lot of those early days of touring, people would not be quiet during acoustic passages. They wanted to boogie, and we weren't giving them boogie. We weren't giving them the formula, but we stuck at it. And now audiences are prepared, you know, decades later, are prepared to listen to that stuff. So there's a legacy from all of that. There is no band, but the music lives on. It gets played by orchestras, by jazzers, tribute bands, and of course, as one of the originators, I'm happy to be authentic and to do that. You know, authenticity over originality. And I've noticed a lot of the guys in the band, you know, might say, well, you know, the real genesis is the stuff of hit singles. But I beg to differ. I think, you know, for me, the real genesis is that time when John Lennon said that we were one of the bands that he was listening to. And that was the era of Selling by the Pound, Foxtrot, Nursery Cryme. You know, those albums have been done then, and not to mention Trespass, which was before Phil and I joined, and from Genesis to Revelation, you know, when they were still at school, basically. Yeah, I love this early stuff. I think this is the real deal. That's what it's all about. The stuff that turned on other musicians. And so, yeah, that's where I pitch my tent.
Of all the Genesis solo albums, I'm kind of curious, is there, from all the members, is there an album that stands out that you like the most? I mean, it's kind of like picking your favorite baby, but and they're not your babies, they're someone else's music, but is there one that stands out, or two or three?
From all the Genesis songs,
all the Genesis solo albums from the members.
Oh, from solo albums from all of the members. Yeah, that's interesting. Funnily enough, many of us really liked Mike Rutherford's first solo album, Small Creeps Day. And you know, the weird thing is, I phoned him up and I said, yeah, you got it right there. Okay. All right, folks, we didn't talk about this. We didn't confer on this. But I remember it was Armando Gallo who played me some of that first of all. And I thought, great. And I phoned Mike up and he said, oh yeah, I didn't like this and that about it. He wasn't very happy with it. And years later, I spoke to Chester Thompson and he said, yeah, I love Mike's album. Okay, Chester Thompson, fabulous drummer, working with us. And so I came to realize that everyone who worked on the album told me what was wrong with it. And yet it was up to us to say what was right about it. So once again, the true owners are not the parents. You know, you create something and you may think, oh, you know, here's my big beautiful baby, or it's, oh well, you know, it didn't come out perfectly and I wasn't happy, and etc. etc. But I'm saying this till I'm blue in the face. The audience are the true owners, and in the case of Small Creeps Day, I was part of the audience for that. I heard it, I was a listener, I became a fan. This is great stuff, I thought. Really great.
I've interviewed everyone on that album except Mike. And right. Just hold on, where is it? Of course, the singer, Noel McCalla. I just talked to him. Yeah. Amazing singer. David Henschel. Who else? Simon Phillips on drums. I interviewed
Simon Phillips. Yes. Yeah, and Anthony Phillips on keyboards.
Yep, him too.
And I thought they were a great band. I have to say, I thought that was, you know, for a band of guys who coming together, most of whom had not performed together before. No. I thought it had a lot to offer. But as I say, when I spoke to the individuals that had been involved, in the main, you know, they felt that it, for whatever reason, that it didn't really work. Don't ask me why. Yeah. When I'm saying, you know, I thought it was just really, really, really good, very well produced, great sounds. I liked Noel's voice with it. I liked the keyboard sounds, I liked the songs, and but you know, perhaps it's not surprising you haven't spoken to Mike about it, and I suspect because he may feel that it's not something he wants to be revealing about. Perhaps I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe he'll talk to you about it. Maybe
I've never talked to Mike, so
you know, I think what tends to happen is artists, after a while, you know, they get to hear what people like about something. And, you get to review your own sense of whether it was a disappointment or not, because it just becomes part of the past. And so you're no longer having to champion that particular product, and it's like you don't have to get behind the flag of it. It's so long ago now. It's just that, oh, people liked it, great. Whatever I've done, people like it, great. That's it. They got it. That's the whole point. Buffy St. Marie, I met her many years ago. I've been listening to her since I was 14 or 15, and she said, "Yeah, we get them when they're young." And very self-effacing. I thought, God, these beautiful, achingly beautiful love songs and the protest songs, and in a way, she was a little bit like the ladies' equivalent of Dylan for me. The protest songs, the conscience of time and a nation. People don't like this sort of stuff, do they? I was thinking about today about Dylan. That people were saying he hates it when anyone introduces him and says the voice of a generation. He hates all that. He doesn't want to be there. But I was thinking, perhaps that's it. But it's the conscience, or to be conscious of the limitations of the era in which you are born, and to perhaps reveal it. And music really did change the world.
Okay, one quick one. Are you surprised?
Sure.
When you left Genesis, you had, there was a younger man who had all these ideas who wanted to express them. Now, looking back, do you think that younger man who left Genesis, that younger version of you, would have imagined all the roads? And man, you've had a lot of creative roads. You think he knew he had that many ideas in him? Looking back at that,
I don't
younger
think so.
version?
No, I think I would have been extremely surprised that the work I've done, and again I have to bring in Jo. She said it's as if it's from rant to romance, from full rant to full romance. Full scream to the most delicate things. And so I wanted to attack music in a very broad way. And did I say Broadway? Give my regards.
Yeah. Someone once said on one of the Genesis things, when they see you and Jo together, and I immediately related to it. When you post a picture of you and her together, they smile. And there's something that's intrinsic about people who are together and somehow work yin and yang with each other, that people don't even know why they're smiling, but they just know it's right.
Well, it's something, funnily enough, my mother said something interesting. She said, when a couple are really the genuine article, they give off something. Something happens, and I often get the feeling that there's some kind of third force at work, whether that's in the realm of spirit or whatever it is, but we kind of become each other. That's really it. There's something. I mean, we haven't had children, but we've had a hell of a lot of brain children in that time. So it's an interesting sacrifice that she made in order to be together with me, and it took a while for us to. Quite a while to establish ourselves as a couple in the face of enormous complication.
Do you think it keeps you young? Because I mean, if I was in your position, and I think I've told you a few times, when I do my work, I'm 62 now, and I'm working harder, but more smarter, enjoying what I'm doing. I'm more conscious of what I'm doing.
Yes.
Bill Bruford told me his best years were in his 60s, and I know you've worked with Bill, but how do you feel?
Right.
How do you look at your career at your age? And you seem to be on top of your game.
Well, I like getting things right, but I also like surprising myself, and little bits of equipment absolutely thrill me when the sound is right. So the sound is right, and I'm revisiting, for instance, Camino Royale, which is a track that was on Highly Strung. And there was something that happened on the original, which had attitude, but I was never able to get the sound right with the original equipment live. And so I realized what I've got different is slacker strings, and I'm doing wider vibrato on it so that each note does something. And I think, yeah, it's this. There's a subtle shift in what I do. You know, it's not just about speed, and I can do speed, whereas I couldn't at one time quite in the way that I wanted to be able to do. If I wanted to keep blistering, I can just about do that. You know, but sometimes you do. Yes, sometimes you don't want to hold back. We went through Camino Royale, and we were doing it, and I thought it's a bit too jazzy, and I said, I don't think it needs a breakdown section in the middle. I think we just need to keep up the energy the whole time, and salvos, and keep it coming so that you don't have time to draw breath, really. And it worked much better. Everyone thought, yeah, it's got all that stuff that we want. Something that the knife has, for instance. You know, it doesn't really draw breath very much. It's got a little quiet section in the middle that's a little bit questionable of its time, but hey, you know, it's like, okay, pause for breath before the next onslaught, really. Yeah.
Well, is it work though to you? Because I look at what I do as, for the first time in the last 5 years, I do what I do, and I don't really I'm kind of enjoying myself. Well, how do you look at it? Is it work, or is it sometimes work? How do you look at it?
I think it's only work when it's going wrong. You know, I think that when it's catching fire, you think, oh yeah, I'm so proud of this. I'm so proud of all the material. You know, we did Ace of Wands. We're thinking of starting with Ace of Wands, and the band take it. And the original is recorded really, really fast, and we started to do it live years ago, slower. But actually, I was doing it with Jarby, the Hungarian band, in a couple of weeks ago, and they took it at the original pace. And I thought, yeah, this actually suits it. It gives it something extraordinary. Again, you know, you're not pausing for breath, so it's this kind of, oh my God, what's going on? How is that possible? That aspect of bam, 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 bam. There was an expression, funny enough, that the late great Ian MacDonald used. You know, a band that can turn on a dime. You know, that aspect of, that's it, isn't it? Pirouetting on a needlehead in a way, so that there's a change, there's a change, there's a change, there's a moment of silence. Where's this coming from? Bam, bam, bam. And so the ideal way to receive all of this is, I haven't ever heard a note that this guy or his band did ever before. And if you come to it with newness, without any idea of what you're going to receive, that's, you know, that's it. Will we ever get virgin audiences at my age? Perhaps not. But on the other hand, it's great not to have to slog up through the clubs again and do all of that, even though there were some great moments that happened there. But part of being known is you can be more experienced, you can be better at what you do, and I like to think I am. You can't be a new face on the block. You can't be a new kid on the block. That isn't there. But you get something else, which is, you realize that a lot of other players were influenced by things that I did, and not exactly dismissed, but marginalized. And that informed their playing. And you realize that, you know, one famous guitarist will say, "Oh, I like the harmony playing that you did on so-and-so, which is why I did that." And another guy will go, "Well, liked tapping, and I decided to make that, pretty much my raison d'etre." And it's part of what it's all about, isn't it? But I think the voyage of discovery goes on all the time, within yourself, with others, refining and getting better at it, and just being able to go, all sorts of things that I wish I could have done at one time. You just hear something, you just think, how is that possible? Miracles, but they're built very slowly. Miracles don't happen overnight, do they? You must know that as a drummer, with technique, where those things that seem absolutely stunning, you'll think, oh well, achievements seem so little in retrospect.
Remember, join our newsletter and you'll get access to all our videos. We have, as of this taping, 128,000 subscribers. That's really good. We're very proud of that. But not all our subscribers get to see our videos, which is sort of a shame, considering how much work we put into these things. The history of rock is what we do. Join our newsletter. The link is at the very top of the description, and you'll have access and you'll get news on all our videos when they come out. Plus, there'll be weekly prizes for folks who join our newsletter, like books, box sets, LPs, and CDs. Also in the description, a link to our Patreon where you get early access to our videos. And if you want to make a donation, there's a PayPal link as well. We love it when you subscribe to our channel. Share our videos on social media. For Prog fans, there's a lot of Prog groups on Facebook, a lot of Genesis groups on Facebook. Feel free to share this video. Like our videos and comment on them as well. I'm John Bowden. Take good care of yourself. This is Rock History Music.